Theft is a great new career, you know, it has great benefits. You know, why would you make minimum wage when you can stay in the best hotels and buy big screen TVs with somebody else's money?
Today, TJX announced the theft of millions of credit card numbers and other personal customer information.
In 2007, TJX, a department store giant with over 2,000 retail outlets around the world, found themselves the victim of the largest known internet theft to date.
Attackers broke into their systems, probably over an insecure wireless network, and basically had the run of their network as far as we can make out for as much as 18 months, maybe even a few years, we're not entirely sure.
Hackers downloaded credit card numbers, millions of them. The exact figure will probably never be known.
Initial estimates of the numbers of individual credentials was around the 45, 46 million mark. In more recent filings, we believe it may be as much as 94 million.
And credit cards aren't the only thing thieves took.
Initially, we thought it was just credit and card details. Over time, we discovered there were driver's licenses as well, which is much more significant. You're getting into pieces of identification that can really allow identity thieves to build identities from the ground up.
The thieves were able to break into the system by using a hacker trick called war driving. Basically, driving around with a laptop and a homemade antenna, often just an empty Pringles chip can covered in tinfoil. Hackers use this antenna to search for unprotected wireless connections. Once they find one, they break in and steal everything on your computer.
I've known people who remain nameless who do this for fun, and what they're doing is trying to spot open wireless connections. And they will show you sometimes on their computers the number of, in some cases, Fortune 500 companies perhaps that may have open network connections.
Being open connections isn't difficult. Nowadays, they're almost everywhere.
I've seen it in banks, at the airport all the time. You'll see the ticket counter have an open wireless port.
Which makes catching the thieves almost impossible. Because they're wireless, the hackers are constantly in motion. The only way to catch one is in the act itself.
Lowe's is a large retailer of building supplies with huge mega stores all over mostly the United States. And they recognized that somebody was hacking into their system. So they called in the FBI, who deployed a couple dozen agents in a store in Southfield, Michigan. And the agents, were so unaware of what was actually happening, they thought that somebody was walking into the store and plugging into a network connection in the wall. But an agent on the roof noticed that there was a beat-up old car in the parking lot with a Pringles can covered with tinfoil, and they said, maybe we should investigate that. And sure enough, the driver of the car was hacking into Lowe's in order to steal credit card information, which was then to be sold to Russian mafia in Detroit.
Donnie shows us how quick and easy war driving is.
In the past 5 minutes, the bell has gone off, looks like about 64 times.
And what does that mean?
65. That means that we found an access point. So I'm connected to somebody's wireless right now. If we were, let's say, someone with malicious intent, now I'd be able to go to, whatever website or send emails so we can see that, leaving your wireless open is just another avenue of attack that a hacker could use.
War driving isn't the only easy-to-learn hacker trick. Nowadays, the internet is bursting with hacker toolkits. These kits are essentially highly developed and highly illegal. Bundles of programs that allow even the beginner to become a junior cyber thief.
If you're looking for a hacker's toolkit, you can just download them off the web. There's lots of them out there. They're easy to find. Most of them, in fact, many of the best are absolutely free. For example, there's some virus writing kits I was showing a little while ago. You basically select the type of virus you want to write, and it builds a virus.
Nowadays, you don't need much skill to become a cyber criminal. You just need the software.
I don't think that it's ever been easier to launch an attack that can cause damage or that can steal sensitive information. It's a Google search away. It doesn't make that person a hacker, but it certainly makes them dangerous.
With the abundance of toolkits, you'd think you'd hear about cyber attacks more often. But some companies choose to keep that information to themselves.
If you have a cyber incident, traditional best practice is cover it up, right? Don't tell anybody about it.
Currently, there are few laws that force companies to disclose cyber criminal activity, and most organizations aren't that eager to make their customers nervous.
They don't want their customers to know that 10 million credit card numbers got stolen. They don't want to have to disclose that. They don't want their stock price to take the hit. It's important for security researchers out there to be able to share data and to see how attacks are evolving. But if companies won't even admit they've been attacked, let alone show how it happened, how are we supposed to get better? It's a real problem.
Once thieves have your information, they sell it to the highest bidder, often advertising it in a thriving online black market.
That's the biggest development in internet security in the last 2.5 years, has been the advent of markets for identities.
In the black market, credit card numbers go for as little as $1 each.
There's sampling, just like there's in the drug trade, where they'll give you 10 to test, and then you test them. Oh, they're all good. I could actually get money out of them or buy something with them.
And full identities, which can include social insurance numbers and addresses, sell for as little as $5.
There's been cases where kids have made up to $150,000 in 6 months from various types of credit card fraud and phishing schemes, and have gone on a spree of electronics buying.
In the past few years, cybercrime has exploded. Some reports put it on a par with the drug trade. And a 2006 survey found it was more costly to businesses than conventional crime. And most of it comes from one place.
When you think today about, what's this sort of country of hacking right now, I think most experts would point to Russia.
A few years ago, the Russian mob, sensing a unique opportunity, went online. And why not? It was less risky than traditional crime, and the internet allowed the mobsters to go international. All they needed was a few programmers.
You have actual organized crime in Russia recruiting promising young programmers and other technical people to work in a cybercrime syndicate.
These Russian syndicates are responsible for the bulk of viruses and hacker exploits released onto the internet every day.
It took 20 years to go from the very first viruses to 250,000 viruses, and that's where we were in the beginning of 2007. By the end of 2007, we were already at 500,000 viruses. So we effectively doubled the amount of all of the malware in one single year.
Because of this, internet security has become a booming business. In the past few years, antivirus labs have sprung up all over the world. Kaspersky in Moscow is one of the biggest.
We receive over 2,000 of new viruses, trojans, and worms every day to this lab. In order to provide constant and non-interrupted protection, virus analysts have to work every hour, every day of the week. We have a special name for them. They're called woodpeckers. That's because they hammer their keyboards very fast.
Donnie seeks help tracking down the authors of the Microsoft Word virus. He gets in contact with a group of Russian cyber criminals.
These guys are no different than a criminal ring that would be specializing in stolen car parts or stolen electronics, where they're trying to turn it, sell it, launder the money, and get some type of percentage out of it.
One of the group agrees to meet with Donnie in a cafe. The Russian tells Donnie that he's part of a hacker crew that works primarily as carders. They steal credit card information and then sell it online.
Yes, for a year or something, like every card, we hustle. The leader of one crew that I was working with, He makes like from $9,000 to $15,000 a week.
I had no idea it was that kind of money. I mean, I was thinking like, $1,000 a week.
Donnie then inquires about viruses that would allow him to steal information from anyone's computer.
So, one of the things that I'm also interested in is Trojans and backdoors.
Yes.
Exactly.
It gets until like $1,000 or something.
Really?
Yes.
$1,000 for a Trojan?
From 400 to 1,000.
Wow, that's insane.
But not all viruses have such a clear purpose. In 2007, a new type of virus appears on the internet. Stormworm. It infects without warning and seemingly without consequence. And to this day, no one knows what its purpose is.
People often ask me about how do I know if I'm infected by Storm? And you really don't, because it doesn't show you any messages, it doesn't destroy anything, it doesn't play any music or anything, any of the fun stuff we used to see with old school virus. It's really invisible.
Not just invisible, but impossible to detect. This is because it's always changing.
This worm keeps morphing itself. Every time you download it, you get a different copy.
And if you do find it and try to remove it, the worm attacks. But the biggest reason Stormworm is making headlines around the world is that it turns a computer into a so-called zombie or robot. The author of Stormworm can then control your computer, now a zombie, remotely, without you knowing.
The zombie computer means a computer which is no longer in control of its owner. The person who actually owns the PC doesn't see this. He thinks the PC works just fine, but there's someone else behind the scenes who has access and can do whatever he wants on that machine, over the network, any time of day he wants.
The worm infects thousands of PCs, creating thousands of zombies. The author of the worm then links all of the zombies together, creating a robot network, or botnet.
So the idea of these botnets is that characters who manage to get bad code onto your computer, they own your computer, they have, I like to call it the key under the mat. They can come back anytime they like. You don't know even that they're there.
Once you have a botnet at your disposal, you can use the combined power of all these computers at the same time.
So you can, for example, send an instruction that all of those machines start to send as much traffic as they can against one single website. That's a denial of service attack.
The same type of attack Mafia Boy used to take down Yahoo.